right, let's look at evangelism. We've talked about several things, and today we're talking about, as I mentioned, the four different kinds of calls. That would be where we are, number 7, right here, 4 different kinds of calls. I think this is probably one of the more important ones, even though it is not so biblically oriented. It's more of practicality and commonsensical for us to think along these lines. So those are the areas we've been to already. So let's go down to the those particular 4 different kinds of calls. All right, so we have the 4 divided up this way. Number 1, there's a friendly call. There's a number 2, a church-related call. Number 3, a teaching call. And then there's a decision call. And I'm following the outline that was a little booklet that was written in the 1960s, I believe, by one of the Bibles. I don't remember his name. Maybe R.B. Sweet himself. It was a Sweet Publishing. Is that what it is? But he said, it's important to think about this, and I can't stress enough how important it is as in evangelism to think about the different kinds of calls, or at least to say the different kinds of visits that you're going to make. So we'll talk about some of these. So let's just talk about the friendly call first of all. All you're doing is establishing camaraderie, you're establishing friendship, you're establishing confidence, you're establishing some fellowship that people can trust in you. You know what? We live in a society, unfortunately, where there are a lot of people out there on the streets and they might just kind of cram things down your throat. And you talk about Bible things right off the bat, and they're going to be categorizing you, and they're going to put you in a category like the Jehovah's Witnesses or something like that, or thinking you're obnoxious and they want to turn you off, right? And that goes on in our society. There are a lot of people like that, people standing on the corners in the streets, in cities, and they're just hollering at people as they go by and having signs and saying, the judgment day is coming, and that is just not, in my view, that is not a good way to establish confidence with people. So I'm simply talking about the fact that Jesus always knew the needs of others, and he always met them where they were. But it's interesting that he had that wisdom to do that, and we need to try to track that wisdom and get confidence first. Now, I put a note on there. The best way to get people talking, and this is just practical experience, is what? Get them talking about themselves. If you come in there and talk about yourself, I'm done. Right. If people come and talk about themselves, I'm like, that's the bottom line, hard truth of the matter. If I come in there and talk about me, I'm going to tell you about my kids, I'm going to tell you about my grandkids, I'm going to tell you about this, I'm going to tell you about my horse, I'm going to tell you about this. They're going to say, when is he leaving? Right? I don't want to talk about myself. Have you heard me up here in the pulpit talking about me and my kids and my grandchildren? How many times have you heard me illustrate anything? My kids this, my children, my family. I talk about mom some, as you knew mom. I talk about my dad, but I don't just sit around. I don't want to do that. And I don't do that when I go to people's houses either. That has nothing to do with it. Maybe. Preacher or no preacher, the way to break barriers down is to get people to talk about themselves, not talk about me. That's the way to get people to talk. I have had many times when people are, they are shut up tight. I thought, wow, how am I going to, I say, how's your day? How's this? How's that? Fine, yeah, that's right. All right, that's right. Here I go. If it's an elderly person, perhaps I think, well, kind of a hard shell to kind of break through. Say, how's your day? Okay, fine. And or say, so have you had any doctor's appointments lately that you're concerned about, or anything going on, or what's happening? And no, well, all right. So then pretty soon you're kind of struggling, and so I say, okay. So now I see a picture on the wall here. You have, how many children do you have? Well, okay, now they're going to go. Now they get going, right? That's honest truth. That's how people do it. Get them talking about themselves. I do this. I'm going to tell you some. This is my personal opinion. You're going to think, what? That may sour you on me, but this is what I do. When I walk away from a conversation, frequently I think, how much did I talk about myself, percentage-wise, in that conversation, which includes me, my family, my grandchildren, blah, 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 blah. And how much did we talk about them? You ever do that? I walk away sometimes thinking, you know what? I've listened 90% of the stuff about them. They didn't ever ask me about, I've been in many churches where this happens. They never ask me about me. They never ask me about my family. They don't ask me about my wife. Don't ask me about the pulpit. Don't ask me about the children. Don't ask me, nothing. It's all, okay, it's not wrong, but I'm simply saying, if you're going to go to a Dale Carnegie course, he's not going to say that's how you win friends and influence people. Right? Now, honestly, that's not. You're not. It's just not. People don't want to hear, if I come to talk to someone and try to get confidence with that person to eventually set up a Bible study, I'm not going to sit there and talk about me. I'm not going to talk about me and my wife. I'll talk about me and my horses. They might ask me something, and I might try to answer it, but as quickly as I can, I just got to get back, let them talk about them a little bit. But I don't do that just for a methodology. I do that because I'm interested in people. I want to know about people. I want to know about you. I want to know about, I would go see Ray, I want to know about Ray, what's going on. If I go see Sue, I know about Sue. I want to know about the family. I want to know. Same thing with Darlene. I want to know about Darlene. I don't want to, I don't want to go and say, here's all about me. I'll just give her a paper about me and let her read it. Now, that's just me. So I'm simply pointing out, as we make contacts with people, it's good to get them to talk about themselves and establish confidence. That's my view of how to establish confidence. I see in this room some people, in my personal view, are I think expert at this. I see several, and one of them is Ray Cook. I'm going to say that because I think, you know what? He's always interested in other people. He's always listening. He doesn't come up and say, let me tell you about, let me tell you this, let me tell you about that, let me tell you about that. He's interested in other people. I think, and I try to think, when I walk away, I think, okay, how much did I talk about myself? Because he got me talking about me, as compared to how much did I ask him to talk about himself or his family. And I think, wow, you know what? He's better than I am at that. No, but that's just my personal opinion of how to make contact and establish confidence with people. Now, I'm happy for you to critique me on that. So, go ahead. Yes, ma'am. Lisa, one excuse is as good as another. People do in life what they want to do. People spend their money on how they want to spend their money. People do what they want to do. That's the bottom line. And me and Nita have had these conversations many times, and she said, why is that? I said, well, in my mind, people just do what they want to do. They don't attend services. They don't want to attend services. Not saying everybody. I'm not saying people can't make it, but people generally do what they want to do. Yes, sir. And it's important. I mean, I consider the priority list, and I like what Lisa said. I think sometimes the priority list, I think, oh, you know what? Like Lisa thinks, that's discouraging. It is discouraging, but you can't let that be discouraging to you. People, I mean, you can't because if you do, we might as well just shut down the shop right now and just go do something else. That's correct. Yeah. So it is, but it can be discouraging. But the reason that Jesus tells the parable of the sower is not everyone is going to accept the gospel. Remember, there are 4 soils, only one was productive, right? Well, he wasn't reflecting on his own ministry. He was telling us most people are going to say, I can't go to church this Father's Day. I can't go to church this Mother's Day. I can't go to church this Easter. I can't, whatever. I spend it with my kids. Yes. Go ahead. Well, you know what? Like Ray said, I mean, all right, that's on them. That's true. That's right. That's right. And all you can do is offer the gospel, Lisa, And then, yeah. Well, we're going to run into a jillion and one things. That's my thoughts. So anyway, that's number one. So this is a friendly call. I'm simply stating to establish some rapport with people. How do you establish rapport with people? How do you do that? And you have to talk to them, and you have to get them to talk about themselves a little bit sometimes. Yes, ma'am. You have to overtalk? Well, I'll just say this. That situation, people knocking on your door, witnesses or whoever coming, that's a different situation. Well, I mean, okay, but when people knock on your door, the Mormons or whomever, that's a different situation than I'm really describing here. I'm describing you're trying to get a Bible study eventually with people, and so how are you going to get rapport? And that's what I'm talking about, yeah. So yeah, yes, ma'am. You know what, phone calls are great, because sometimes we can't just mobilize around everywhere, right? Right. You know what, so I'm going to, that's number two, and I'm going to talk about that, so that's right. So, okay, so on that one, I'm not saying phone calls are out, we're not talking, I'm simply saying we're trying to set up where we can establish some rapport with people to study the Bible. So even though the phone calls are great and that kind of thing is fine, there still has to be eventually a face-to-face. We can't really, you can study the Bible over the phone, but it's not really as productive as it could be. All right, so this is number two. Okay, that's the friendly call. We're just trying to establish rapport. Number two, the church-related call. I am actually interested in awakening their interest in the church, in the Lord's church. We've already talked about we have to have a clear vision of what is the church and understanding of it. But I do want to make a couple of comments here, and you'll have it in the brackets here. Do not criticize the church or church members in front of anyone else. I do not understand. It frustrates me when I hear that Christians have criticized other Christians, especially in front of children or in front of non-members of the church. I thought, what are we doing? Why do that? Why would you do that? Why would I go talk to someone who I'm wanting to study the Bible with and talk about, well, but when you come in here, you got to look out for Sue Bradbury. She has her seat right there, and just don't sit where she sits. Or I don't want to say, look out for Randy. He's going to grab you and he's going to ask you to do something, physically at the building. Just look out for him. I don't personally understand why that happens. I do not understand it. I don't want to backhand members of the church in front of other people. Does that mean that all of us are above criticism? No. But there's a time and place for criticism, and when you're trying to establish contact with people and study the Bible with a non-Christian, that's not the time to criticize Christians. It's just not. And we need not do that much anyway. I mean, I know that some people need criticism constructively, but that would be on a personal level. But we need to be much more careful about that. And I've heard people criticizing the church, the people in the church in front of children. So I had a preacher come one time and he said, here's how it goes. They're driving home. And so we're driving, his husband talking to his wife, the kids are in the back seat. He says, what do you think about that sermon? I didn't like it. Well, you know what? I wish he wouldn't preach so long. I'm blah, 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 blah. Okay. And I don't agree with him on that stuff. Do you agree with it? I don't agree with that. All right, what are we teaching the backseaters? That's right. And we wonder why they don't stay. They leave. And that's what happens. And we don't need to be critical. I don't think we need to be critical of other people. That's not to say that I've not criticized people. It's not to say that I have not violated my own statement here, but I try to be very, very careful about who. Sometimes I'll be with I can remember a couple of occasions where I'm with someone who's not a Christian, and I think, well, and they might even come here worshiping and visiting, and then I'll have another Christian come up and be critical about another member in front of that person. I thought, why? Why do that? It's not a selling point, is it? Now, I'll say this. I want to kind of smooth it over a little bit. This is the friendliest and lovingest congregation that I've been in. Really, it is. And everybody loves one another, cares for one another, and assists one another. I think so. That's not to say everybody's perfect, but, this is a great, friendly congregation. Ray? Oh, yeah. You know what? That is such a good point. Someone, I don't know if they're in here or not right now. I was trying to think who it was. One of the members here was talking about one of the reasons they love this congregation was because of the size. And when they said that, I thought, that, because some people, they don't appreciate the size, but and I thought, well, that kind of taught me right there, say, you know what? People want, because we have personal attention, they don't get lost in the crowd, and there's a lot of things about it, but it's easy to backhand by criticism a church or people by simply saying, but we're really small, and that's almost like it is a negative, and I think it's easy to do that. Yeah, I think that's a good point because negativity isn't simply saying, you know what? Well, Dave Sundquist over here, he falls asleep every Sunday, and not every Sunday, not every Sunday during the sermon. But see that we don't have to be that forward with a criticism. It could be just like you say, well, we're really small. That stuff. You may not like it. I think it's a good point. So I'm simply saying we're trying to interest the church or people in the church. So I would say, boy, don't criticize the church, and don't criticize your neighbors. Don't criticize. Not to say that we're above criticism. Again, I want to reemphasize, not to say I'm above criticism, but boy, I tell you what, we have got to be very careful about that. So that brings us to this: make people feel welcome. I think we do that. Sometimes we can arrange people to pick them up for services to help get them here. I mean, we need to be diligent to do this in order that we might, can I help you? Or come, now they may be like the people Lisa talked to saying, well, you know what, I just don't go on Father's Day. Well, so whatever, but, we can make arrangements if we can help people out. So it's a church-related call. Make people feel welcome. So, all right, let's talk about, unless there's something else on that one, let's talk about a teaching call. So on these right here, friendly calls and church-related call, I'm going to say that most of our visiting on this visitation program falls into those two categories. Correct? Not really, we're going to teach a person, a non-Christian. There may be some inactive members we want to teach, but we need to start back there in the friendly call first. So let's talk about the teaching call. If I show up on your doorstep with a Bible in hand, what am I saying? I'm here to teach you something. So when you show up with the Bible in hand, you're saying, I'm here to teach you something. And that's also to say, what? What is it to say? You need to be taught something. You need to be taught something. So I'm always careful about that. So we need to, there are times that we do need to do that, but I think we need to establish that first, that we're going to do that. Yes, sir. Yeah. Sure, and that's the thing to do. So we have to ask permission to study. So on the visitation cards over here, I don't pick up a card and then I'm going to show up at the door and say, Nita Lockwood, I'm here to visit you. Well, what am I doing? I've just said she needs a Bible study, and I'm the one to give it to her, and it's kind of a put-offish thing. And I've got my pad here to tell her how it's going to go. That's not to say there's not a time to take your Bible, But it is to say, let's use some savvy here on how to do it. So, the person is that person a non-Christian? Is the person a new Christian? Is the person a member that is inactive and not faithful? What is the status here? Is the person a member of a denomination? As Bruce said, get permission before you take your Bible up there and study. Would you like to study the Bible? You can always have a tract. We've talked about tracts before. And some people, oh, I put a note on here, just like a preacher, we expect him to be prepared when he stands up at the pulpit, right? We expect that. I did this one time. I was in Earl, Arkansas, and I was a little bit, I thought, you know what, I want to teach something here, but I want to do it this way. And people would sit in class or they'd sit in the services. I remember one man paring his nails. While I preached, I thought I would stop and say, hey. And he would just kind of, well, you know what? Or they come, anyway, so I did this. I got up in the pulpit one Sunday. I said, you know what? I'm not quite prepared this morning to preach. I said, I wish the song leader, I didn't tell him, I didn't coordinate with him. I said, I wish the song leader, his name was Guy Hydrick. I said, I wish Guy would come up and lead a couple more songs. Let me think about my lesson a little bit more. And he was like, what am I going to do here? He was scrambling in the book. And I thought, boy, I started to laugh, but anyway, so I said, I'm going to go sit down. I'm going to study my notes a little bit more. And so he kind of, okay, let's sing, blah, blah, blah. And starts, everybody, but I'll never forget either, when I said that, there was a lady her name was Irene. She was sitting about right over here where Darlene is in my vision. And her mouth went like this, like, I've never heard any preacher do this before. And other ones were like, you can, you know, when you have this gasp and you can feel it in the congregation. What? So, you know what point I was making? I came back into the pulpit. I says, you know what? You expect me to be prepared every single Sunday. If I was unprepared, you would be critical of me, and rightly so. But how many of you have not prepared to worship God? You have not. You go to bed at midnight on Saturday night. You go and have a good time. You get up late in the morning. You rush in here. You have the kids in tow, and you throw them in Bible class and say, where are we in our Bible study? And then you kind of sit around and do your own thing. It's like, you know what? I'm tired. I didn't get my sleep. So you don't prepare to worship, but you want me to be prepared to preach. And that's what happens too frequently, really. So I say that simply to tell you, we need to be prepared for Bible study with people, right? Be prepared. Know what, already kind of lined up in our minds where these people are. What kind of member are they? Are inactive? Are they active? Are they young? Are they a non-Christian at all? You need to line that up in our mind. How are we going to approach it? And as you go along, you'll figure out maybe some things that you're helpful in approach. But preparation is the best way to do it. Yes, sir. That is a good one. Yeah. Yeah. I'm in the visitation program. Nita Lockwood lined it up, and she told me to come visit you. Well, so if you didn't hear her in the back, she said that she knows people who know their Bibles, they are familiar with the Bible, but they don't attend worship. And it's like, how can that possibly be? And the answer, of course, is that they're not actually inserting it into their heart. They're actually, you can know the facts, but that doesn't necessarily translate into action. And sometimes, in my experience is, people don't know it as well as they say they know it. I say, well, you know what the Bible says about worship. I've had with a lot of Christians that, I know what the Bible says. I said, well, what does it say about worship? You know, they go, I can worship God anywhere. Where are we reading that in the New Testament? They gather together. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so, yeah, and those kinds of things, on those situations, she said, where does it say you have to go to church every Sunday? When I try not to tackle that one right there. I try to back up and just let's talk about what is the church, if we're ready for that discussion. What is the church, and why would people not be interested in are we interested in what pleases God or not? And I think, well, but I think we're too familiar with, or too stuck on what pleases me. I don't have to. I don't like that. I don't have to, blah, blah, blah. Just like when I hear that kind of talk, I was like, that just kind of grates on me. I don't have to do that to be faithful. I have to. Say again? Oh, I've heard, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I hear it all the time. Yeah, we let the world seep into us so much. It's very sad. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that to be a faithful Christian. It's just, but yeah, yeah. Well, that's how it translates. Yeah, I don't. That's really how it translates. People do what they want to do. Right. Go ahead. Right. Yeah, that's right. You know what? I'll just give you this illustration real quickly. Well, I guess I got to hurry up. I guess I'll tell you what. Just leave it there. But the last one is a decision call. That is, you're actually making the direct appeal. Sometimes people are kind of sitting on that edge, and you've been in places like this, Bruce, where they're kind of like, okay, you know everything that you need to know. How much they knew on the day of Pentecost, they knew, but what's holding them up from making a decision? And I try to put it politely. What hinders you from becoming a Christian? Why have you not made that decision? And sometimes they open up and talk to you about it. So, but there's a decision call. So that's a different call entirely. So the first two are the ones we really, and we want to go to that decision, but the first two I think we kind of overlooked sometimes, and that is the friendly call, the church-related call. Kind of overlook that a little bit, and then but we need to get down to the teaching and then making the decision somewhere along the line. And sometimes if you don't feel confident in that, well, there's a lot of people here who are happy to do it. David's been at this a long time, and he's, yes, sir. Yeah, save your critique for afterwards. Well, we all do. We all need to have that attitude. Thank you for that. All right, so the class is finished. So next week we'll move on to another portion of the topic, and we're going to go ahead and close shop here.